Hello, good evening, guys. I have a special guest. I know you already know who it is, Michelle Woodhouse. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm very enthusiastic, just on a personal level, enthusiastic to make this more public than I've made it before. That obviously I'm endorsing your candidacy, but Education First Alliance is so strongly behind you because of all your work, really in educating the entire state of North Carolina about the issues that we care about.
Well, I'm so honored. Thank you so much. And, we've got a hard fight across the state, and the work you're doing is so incredible. What the lieutenant governor has exposed has been so pivotal. I really think this is going to be the mama bear midterm, where we are going to see in North Carolina, much like we saw in Virginia, where parents who are so upset about what they're seeing in their schools are coming out in droves to say, we need a change. It's time for a change.
They really are. And I mean, we've talked about critical race theory for a while, but North Carolina is really on the map as the epicenter for social emotional learning. And I looked at your Facebook page last week and I literally jumped out of my seat. I might have even spilled my coffee. And I'm like, Michelle totally gets it. You get the threat. We've been talking about Chuck Edwards, your opponent, being involved in the mental health bill of 2020, which brought us social emotional learning, grooming, and surveys and psychiatric clinics in every school. So tell us what you think about social emotional learning and how you're going to eradicate, because ESSER funds and ARP funds are attached to that coming into our classroom. How are you going to be the firewall between DC and the classroom?
Well, and I think one of the things I think that we have to do at the federal level is we have to immediately start defunding the Department of Education. I mean, that is the department that has completely abandoned our children. It's become a cesspool of bureaucrats that are trying to push a social agenda onto our children. And the states take so much money from the federal government, and every one of those dollars has strings attached to it. And that's why we end up in a situation that we do with social emotional learning, CRT, grooming, everything that kind of falls under that umbrella. And when we look at what happened here in North Carolina, and I look at someone like Chuck Edwards, who claims to be a conservative, who voted for a bill that maybe on the surface, they thought the idea of social emotional learning was good for our kids, but no one read that bill. No one unpacked it. No Republican who was part of that did their due diligence. And you know this better than anyone. But what I've been shocked by is when I've challenged Senator Edwards about this on the campaign trail, he doesn't even know he voted for it. He doesn't understand that social emotional learning and CRT go hand in hand. So it is unbelievable when someone can get out on the stump and talk about wanting to go to Washington, D.C. and fight for the people of Western North Carolina when they've become such a career politician in the swamp on Jones Street that they're voting for bills that they don't even know, that they don't know what's in them. They haven't read them, and bills that really hurt our children and families.
Yeah, I mean, he's total establishment. The problem is the establishment and the state of North Carolina brought us critical race theory. They brought us social emotional learning, and now they're not doing anything about it. I reached out to Chuck Edwards, I think it was a couple of months ago, and I brought this to his attention. I said, what are you going to do about social emotional learning? Completely blew me off. And I told him, I may have asserted myself, listen, we have a lot of people on the ground. You may want to, focus on what's going on. He's one of the few people in the General Assembly who actually did not know who we were. By the way, I keep saying this. Mike Lee is chair, a senator, chair of the Education Committee in the General Assembly, also hiding under his desk. But your opponent, he knows now that we've brought it to light. He knows what his vote is, and I think he's running away from it.
Yeah. Well, I say this often when I'm talking to constituents, and it's always startling to me when I see it happen. When you see the lieutenant governor on his porch talking about pornography in our libraries, when he's showing books that are being shown to K-3, when we're seeing the radical indoctrination messaging and sexualization of our children, and he's talking about it and bringing it to light from the the General Assembly standpoint, he stands on that porch alone. There are no Republicans
Yeah.
who stand there with him. No one stands there and fights with him. We're here. I'm out on the campaign trail in Macon County. Been here for a couple of days, staying at my mom and dad's house. And Macon County is in the far west part of the state of North Carolina, very conservative community. And in the middle school here, in this little county, red county, Bible Belt County, there are children who now identify as cats and dogs in the school, and the parents have asked for litter boxes to be put into the restrooms of these middle schools. That's how far this ideology is trying to take our children everywhere. It's everywhere. And I shared this at a fundraiser tonight with some folks here about this story. And I said, when you're out here, you think, oh, it's only happening in Asheville, or it's only happening in Charlotte, or it's only happening in Chapel Hill. This is happening in every school across this state. And you have been fighting it so diligently, but we have a long way to go. And none of us can let up on fighting for our children and getting this woke ideology out. And sadly, we see this in this particular subject, that all Republicans are definitely not created equal. And we have people who claim to be Republican, they claim to be conservative, and they don't understand how damaging and detrimental this is. And they continue to vote to put it into our classrooms because at the end of the day, they would rather have the dollars than take care of our children.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that over and over again. I mean, look, this is another Bill Gates special with this Castle SEL. And it's one of the things that, we're really up against it. So we've got in the state of North Carolina, Michelle, we have 19 specific education groups that are funded by progressives. They're think tanks, they're activists, they're, teachers, unionists, whatever. We have one, that's us fighting at the state level for this. And we've been able to accomplish quite a lot. Obviously, we've got some willing partners in the General Assembly. You mentioned Mark Robinson, but again, and I want to stress this to everybody, we have got to have a firewall between Biden and the classroom. Michelle is it. Michelle is it. So these primaries determine the kind of Republican leadership that we're going to have in this state, for sure. So this is a very, very pivotal primary. When we first started, we started out as a nonprofit, and then we went to a PAC, and we agreed. The board members said, look, we're not going to get into the primaries. It's contentious, et cetera. And then maybe a week later, we said, gosh darn it, we have too much to lose not to, because we realized that the fight is in the primary.
It is.
And that the fight that you're in. Yeah. I mean, what kind of Republican Party? And Michelle, we came to that conclusion because we said, well, gee, we can't think of a Democrat who has got us into this mess with SEL or CRT. It's been the Republicans. So
absolutely.
Why wouldn't we get involved? And that's when we made the decision. You are a natural first support because we had a relationship before that, and we've been an early supporter of yours, and want to encourage everyone to make the right decision. Again, I mean, you're the mama bear. You're not only, you don't talk the talk, you walk the walk.
Right. Well, and we have to. I think it is, I've said this many times, if you asked any candidate, Republican candidate, do you support CRT or SEL? They would say, of course not. Do you want our children indoctrinated? Of course not. They're gonna pound their chest on the campaign trail. But I would encourage everyone who's watching this, and I know you do an incredible job of vetting this. People got to do their homework. You have to look and see if they're a politician, how have they voted? Who's giving them money? Whether they're a politician or a candidate, who's giving them money? That'll tell you exactly who they will be beholden to. And if you're looking at someone's FEC report, like a Chuck Edwards, and it is a Rolodex of lobbyists out of Raleigh, if it's the Good Old Boys Network out of Raleigh, if it's other people who voted and supported to put this into our classrooms and do this to our children, then you know exactly what you're going to get. And that's why we have to be so diligent in looking at candidates and really vetting from the bottom to the top. It's this race is at the top of the ballot, but we look at races across the state and so many people jumping into school board races. We saw how detrimental it was not to have the right people in place there. We've got to be paying such close attention. So I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, for the support you're giving to those of us who really lock arms with you to fight this cause, because if we don't take care of our children, none of the other stuff matters.
Yeah, and it will not stop unless and until we stop it. So
absolutely.
I really want to thank you for taking the time tonight. Your endorsement is very special to us. And we couldn't just, put a little artwork out there. We got to put a little love into this one. So thank you again for coming on. And again, tell us what your website is. If people want to make a donation tonight, how do they do that?
Absolutely. They can go to woodhouse4nc.com. You can use the number 4nc.com. We'd be so grateful. Time, treasure, and prayers. That's really how we get through this. We've got all the grassroots momentum here on the ground in Western North Carolina. And we're in a fight. We're really in a fight, and we've got to protect this seat and make sure that we send a strong fighting conservative to Washington, D.C., because we've got Chuck Edwards taking up the Rhino establishment lane. But if, gosh forbid, a Democrat were to snag this seat, the woman that they've got running on the left is squad liberal. And it will be unbelievably devastating, not only to our communities here, but to our state.
Yeah, that can't happen. That
will not happen. We are not going to let that happen. We feel so great about where we are, and we feel so strong about the support, and endorsements like this mean the world. And we're incredibly grateful. We've worked really hard, and we feel like we've got so much work left to do. And then we'll take a minute once we win and get really to the incredibly hard work that needs to be done, because there's no rest at this point.
There's no rest. It's go time, baby.
It is.
And you've got a partner. It is. Yeah, you got a partner in us. So thank you again. It's give me the website just one more time, because if you're out there and you want to volunteer, okay, we need you. We need you at early voting sites, and we need you May 17th polling places. We've got to have 2 greeters, okay, at every polling place, right? So what's the website again, Michelle?
Woodhouse4nc.com.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you very much, Michelle. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, Sloan. Thank you for the great work you're doing and for the endorsement. So grateful.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.